Hi, I'm Bowtie Dave. Well, hello and welcome to Bowtie Life for our small space gardening episode number 6. And we've been slowly watching our seedlings grow here, and I want to talk just briefly about why I'm doing this series. And you know, it's so often that someone says, "Oh, I really wish I could garden," and I hear people say this, and then they just don't know what to do. They don't know the first step. And if you listen to some people, they'll give you a list of $10,000 worth of stuff you need to run out and buy. Not 10,000, but you know, it suddenly becomes this very involved process that seems too complex to start. And I know in my situation, when I was, I don't know, I might have been 10 years old, I grew a cucumber plant. And I just asked my mom if I could grow a cucumber plant. I planted it in the wrong place. It didn't grow very well. I think I had one little tiny cucumber that grew off of it, and that was it. And then years and years later, I grew some beans and for a school project. And then decades later, I grew 2 tomato plants and had some success finally. And you know, these little tiny successes that we get along the way, we learn from that. And I just really want to encourage you. You know, we're doing this cheaply. I'm not saying that gardening is going to save you a ton of money. You can. I know people do that. But you don't have to spend a lot of money to try it out. And I think everyone should try it out. I think everyone should at least give it a shot to see, you know, what does it take to grow a tomato or a jalapeno pepper or chives or onions or whatever. And we're going to be doing some more series like this in the months and years to come as far as what I'm planning. But I just want to focus on one thing and just simplify it. Now, if you look at the rest of my channel, you know I've got a big garden. I've got a lot of plants out there, but this series is just to focus on this little guy right here, and just down to the simplicity of what's going on. Now, there is some things going on. I have been watering this regularly. I put it out here. We walk by this way every single day, multiple times a day. Our cars are parked right there, so we're always seeing this little tomato plant sitting right here on this table right by the front door. So you want to, we've already discussed this, you want to pick a place where you can see that and water it. I always keep a cup of water. In fact, I just dumped it in here. Wasn't thinking, otherwise I'd show you. But you can see there's a little bit of water in here, or some dripping going on. I'm trying to keep this thing where I'm going to see it. If I put it somewhere where I'm not going to see it, it's going to get forgotten with my ADD brain. That's just the way it works. So I did want to show you, number one, you see I'm kind of holding my finger down here. You can see that this is the big tomato plant that we've been watching. Remember, it just had like 2 or 3 leaves, and you'll have to excuse the jets. We live around 4 air bases, 2 airports, and a heliport. So there is air traffic around here sometimes. But anyway, so this thing grew up. It was growing straight up. I'm not sure what happened, but suddenly one day I saw it was bent over and started growing upwards. But notice, this thing is really starting to grow up. Now, we have a cotyledon leaf down. In fact, you can see this right there. You can see this cotyledon leaf right here. That is the seed that comes from, that's the leaf that comes from the seed itself. It's actually part of the seed. It's starting to shrivel away, but we have true leaves out here. In other words, these are the leaves that look like what this plant's leaves are going to look like. It's kind of a potato leaf shape. It is not the standard tomato leaf that we expect, but you know, it's part of the interesting things of gardening. You get different things, and it's actually part of the description when you look at it. But you might remember we had another little plant in here, and you can see here, look, it's starting to develop more leaves, and I thought this was really interesting. This is actually the main reason I wanted to do this. because this little guy is just starting to grow up and become something. And there's hope for it. You know, we didn't know if this thing was going to do anything, but it's going to start doing something. So on the very next episode, we're going to be putting this big one in a pot, in a bigger pot. And we're going to go on to the next phase of growing this. Now, we have picked an east-facing front porch to put this on. And I've done this because, you know, depending on your situation, you might be in an apartment, condo, wherever you're at. And I encourage you to turn your waiting room into a classroom. Maybe you don't have a farm. One day you want to have a farm. Or maybe one day you just want to have a house in suburbia like I do and have a patch of garden somewhere. And that's beautiful. And that's where we want to go. But, you know, right now, if we're not there, we can start learning. And I was in an apartment doing gardening on a 16-foot front patio, north-facing front patio at that. And I just turned my waiting room into a classroom. And I encourage you to do that too. If you have a notion that you want to do that, and listen to that and try it. Give it a shot. It doesn't take a lot. Looky here. The only tool I've invested is an old teaspoon from the kitchen. That's the only tool I've invested. The only equipment I've invested is a couple of solo cups that I keep out here. One that the tomatoes growing in, and one that I keep out here for water. I took an old bowl from a breakfast bowl, Stouffer's breakfast bowl. You know, one of those little stick in the microwave and have your breakfast kind of thing. This is about it. I did talk about some fertilizer an episode or two ago. That's optional, and you can get those in small containers. You don't have to buy 50 pounds of fertilizer to do this. So anyway, we do need to address one other thing here, though, and that is, see that? This thing can get abused, but notice that this thing is a little bit wobbly, and tomatoes are actually pretty resilient. The stem can actually break. You can put it back together and support it, and it will come back together. It'll grow. It'll continue to thrive. Now, back up. So we're east-facing porch, and we don't get a lot of sun on this particular porch. We're going to do another series. We're on a west-facing porch, and we'll do something. You'll notice that we have a lot more sun on the west-facing porch at this particular property, but on this one, we're just, and you know, you just look outside, see what you got. Maybe you got a porch, maybe you just got a sunny window. If it's south-facing, whoo, you're in heaven. If it's not south-facing, you can still make it work. I made north-facing patio work regularly. But anyway, so yeah, that's what I meant to say. So if you don't have a lot of sun, you know, something like this, they say it requires 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. This guy gets about 3, maybe pushing 4 hours of sunlight every morning. So I would be surprised if it's 4. I'll bet it's probably under 3. So doesn't mean this thing isn't going to grow. It just means it's going to grow slower. That's it. So if you have time, it doesn't matter. If you're living in Miami, you've got a growing season that goes year-round. You can always have a tomato plant going. It's never going to die because you don't get frost in Miami. We're in Destin, Florida. We occasionally do get frosts. Not every year, but we do occasionally get frosts. And so you got to kind of plan for that. And the nice thing about doing this in a pot, I have a lot of dragonflies around. Nice thing about doing this in a pot is that you can bring it inside if you know it's going to frost that night. Now, if you're further up north, you need to plan a little bit ahead and start this thing in the spring. This step right here can be done indoors before your last frost in the spring. So you can actually have a plant that's ready to go in a pot. And like I said, the next episode, we're putting this in a pot. We're going to have a place to put this, and it's going to be A-OK. It's going to start being a real plant. So anyway, one thing I did want to show you is it's very easy to give this guy, and the wind's blowing out here. This thing's wobbling a little bit. I'm a little concerned. I come walking in and I see the wind blowing, and I see that thing kind of leaning over. I'm like, eh. And tomatoes typically do need support as they're growing. And so sometimes, even as a a seedling like this, they may need some support. So what I've done is I've got a shish kebab stick. Actually, this may be, I don't know what this is. This was laying around the house. I could easily use a shish kebab stick or whatever. Again, we're just trying these things. We're just tinkering around and figuring out what we can do where we're at right now. And so it doesn't take much to support this. Now, as I'm sticking this in here, I know that the roots are going to be centering around this point right here where this stem goes in the ground. Fortunately, it's way over here, so I know that it's pretty safe to stick a stick right down in the side of the cup. And that's normally what you want to do is kind of go with the side of the cup. And we're actually going to secure this to this stick. We're going to call it a stake. And we're going to make this thing solid. And it's going to grow, it's going to appreciate it, because that's what tomatoes do. Now, tomatoes are vining plants. They grow in this, if nothing is done with them, they grow in this mass, this pile of plant. And you can see some of my videos of how that happens. But anyway, so the way we're going to tie this, now, personally, I like to use sisal twine. Sisal twine is made of agave. It's a little bit stronger than jute. This is actually jute. Now, the reason why I like sisal twine is because it lasts more than a season. Jute generally lasts a season. Both of them, when they fall into the garden, they're going to decay because they're made of plant matter. But the thing is, and let me just bring you in a little closer here to see. So the thing here is, this is a very tender plant. We do not want to squeeze the life out of this thing. So when we wrap this string around here, and we're going to pick a place up a little as high as we can, we don't want to strangle this thing. We don't want to tighten this so tight that it damages the stem. Okay, this is very tender. We just want to kind of give it a little support. So now, mind you, remember, we're going to be planting this in a pot here very shortly. So I don't need to leave a ton of room. Now, I've had tomato plants that are larger around than my thumb. So you know, if you're dealing with large plants, you need to leave some more space. But all I'm going to do here is I'm going to give this just enough room. I'm going to bring this leaf up here, and you'll see it's pretty flexible. But I'm going to give it just enough room. It's going to move a little bit, and that's good. As a plant in the garden, we want to leave it a little bit of room to move. It creates health. I'm going to tie a square knot, and I've got another video on tying a square knot somewhere, but you see I just tied one little loop, and then you see it comes down the top. Well, this needs to come back over the top and slip under there, and that is a square knot. And you'll see as I tighten it, it's not going to slip. It's going to stay right there, and it's going to hold that thing right there, give it the support it needs. The wind can blow all it wants, and it's not going to damage that plant. It's not even going to bother being blown up against this stake, so it's going to be just fine. The little guy down here, he's just fine. He can take a little bit of wind too, and the wind is actually good for the plants because that builds strength in the stems that lead out to the leaves. It just overall teaches the plant to be a stronger plant. So anyway, I hope you're enjoying this series. I'm trying to keep this just the basics. We get so overwhelmed with information sometimes. Really, all we need to know is just some basics to get started, just to try this out. And there's just a few basic techniques that I want to teach throughout this series. Like I said, the very next episode, we're putting this guy in a pot. He's getting moved up from solo cup. He's graduating, and I'm very excited about that because that's kind of takes it to the next level. So and now I did check earlier, there are no roots growing out the bottom yet, so this guy isn't begging to get into more dirt, but it will appreciate it. Now and we'll talk more about what's going to happen in that next episode. But if you're enjoying this, please be sure to subscribe if you have not already. We do release a video almost every day, but not quite every day. At this moment in the middle of September, we're releasing 4 videos every 5 days. But That varies depending on the time of year. But you can go to the playlist. In fact, at the white closing screen on this video in the lower left corner of the screen, you'll see there's a link to the whole playlist of these if you haven't seen the whole playlist yet, which takes you from the very beginning when we selected and planted this seed in this solo cup. So be sure to check out the whole series and subscribe so you catch the future episodes of this series. And also on that closing screen, just let me mention, on the right side is going to be links to 2 other videos, probably the first 2 videos of this this particular series. But yeah, so subscribe helps you make sure you can come back and see the rest of this. Those of you who have subscribed, you're my hero. I appreciate it. I just watch those numbers and enjoy seeing when people feel that the channel and the content is worth subscribing to. So that just fills my heart. Now, these videos, most of these videos are my own personal log of what's going on in the garden. So it's kind of a personal purpose for me to have these, because I go back and I look over them frequently. In fact, I went back and looked over a couple of the episodes from this series just a couple of days ago, and I forget what it was, but I was trying to remember something, and I had to look back and remind myself with my ADD brain that has a tendency to forget things. But anyway, thank you for watching, and please continue to watch the videos. If you thought this was informational, educational, inspirational, or just entertaining to see me fumbling around with a stupid little plant, please click the thumbs up on this video and share it on your social media. I do appreciate that. It helps grow the community. The community is more than just Bowtie Life. It's the overall community on YouTube of gardeners and homesteaders that are just growing by leaps and bounds, and we have so much information at our fingertips now because of it that it's just kind of a different world, you know. But anyway, that was all. I just want to make this kind of a quick episode, as most of these are fairly quick. And all that being said, hope you have a blessed day.